Today on the Healthful Pursuit Podcast.
I'll get myself keto cookies, right? And they'll come in a nice little cute bag and they're like 5 servings. I'll have it all because it's only 2 grams of net carbs for a serving or only 10 for the entire bag, right? And I'm like, oh, these are so good. They're cookies. And then I eat the entire bag because it's keto cookies. What the heck? It's okay. But it still has an effect on the brain. The brain can still register it as sugar, whether we believe it or not. And then it has all the other additives in there that can cause inflammation in the brain. So you might not see the whole improvement in ADHD or anxiety, even though you might think it's keto, you're hitting your macros.
Welcome back. This week, we're diving into a fan favorite replay from 2021. I can't even comprehend how it's almost 2025. This episode we launched with Priscilla, the incredible mind behind Keto Girl Nutritionist. Priscilla's journey is so inspiring. She went from struggling with emotional eating and hormone imbalances to helping women transform their lives through sustainable ketogenic diets. In this episode, we talk about the root cause of mental health struggles, the brain's relationship with carbs, inflammation, responsible supplementation, and so much more. If you're curious about how keto can support your brain, hormones, and overall health, this conversation is a must listen. So let's cut over to our time with Priscilla from 2021. Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness. Hey, Priscilla, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm so good. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely.
Today, I wanted to talk about, you actually suggested chatting about mental health because you're starting to see this a lot more and more in your practice. And so we wanted to touch on mental health. We'll probably throw in a whole bunch of other things, but I'd love for you to just take a moment to introduce yourself. I know I just read your bio and everything, but if you want to just, in your own words, tell us who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about.
Absolutely. So I am Keto Girl Nutritionist. I love what I do because I love just making keto not just like, here's your macros, here's protein and carbs, blah, blah, blah. I love to get to the root cause of weight loss because I know for women, it's complex. It's not a one size fits all. So that's what I do. I'm passionate about it because I've seen the benefits of keto helping women with their hormone balances, PCOS, hypothyroidism, high cortisol stress levels, like we previously talked about. But now it's transitioning into also mental health issues. Like, sure, if you have a hormone imbalance, you're going to have some mental health issues going on, some anxiety and all that other great stuff. But some people just purely have the mental health issue going on. Like weight isn't too much of a factor for them. It's just the mental health. And so that's what I've been seeing more and more of with psychologists and psychiatrists referring clients to do keto because they're seeing the amazing benefits of keto. So yes, that's what I love about keto. That's the kind of clients I work with. So I'm super excited to talk more about that with you this time.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And in fact, I hired a dietitian a while back to help me because sometimes it's nice to just sit back, relax, and have somebody take care of you and maybe point out things that you need that perhaps as a practitioner, sometimes you get blind and you've been looking at your own stuff so long. It's nice to have feedback. And I had a long conversation with her about the carbohydrates and the function of the brain. And we disagreed. She was like, no, carbohydrates should not make your brain do anything funky. And I'm like, no, like this is the reason why I eat a ketogenic diet and a low carb diet, because when I am on carbs, I am not the same person mentally. Like I am more overwhelmed. I'm more anxious. I nag on my husband more. I get, overwhelmed and anxious a lot more. My ADHD skyrockets. Like I have such a hard time just staying focused on one task. Are these sort of things that you're seeing people come to keto because of?
Exactly. So that's one of the things, like they come to keto for the weight loss, right? They're like, I'm tired of the weight, going up and down, or they want to lose some X, Y, and Z. But the reason why they're really staying is for the mental health reasons. Because we all know calorie counting works until it doesn't, right? It doesn't work for most women long term. And the biggest problem is it doesn't provide the brain with the fat that's calming, which we can talk more about. And so, yeah, absolutely. I would 100% say that all of my clients at the end of working with me, it's the mental health. They're like, I feel so good. Like, sure, I love the weight loss, but the mental health reason is why I want to keep doing this. Like I just have more energy. I don't have the anxiety and the panic attacks, you name it. Like it's so much better. And it's just a beautiful thing to see that transformation.
Yes, completely. And something that you said too with the brain and fats, and why are we seeing this? Like I get this question a lot, like why do carbs make me crazy? Like what's happening and why are we seeing these changes as we start to bring fats into the picture?
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but has mental health, like anxiety and depression, not skyrocketed over like the last 20 years? Like we're seeing a pandemic, in my opinion. Like people are wanting antidepressants. They're feeling stressed and anxious all the time. Then are we doing more research? Maybe, but I think there's a correlation with that and the obesity epidemic as well. We're eating more sugar, we're eating more refined carbs, and mental health is skyrocketing at the same time. So I think there's a correlation for sure with the sugar and mental health for sure.
Yeah. And when we even think of Alzheimer's, understanding that a lot of doctors are now calling it diabetes type 3, that these brains cannot run on glucose. And that's why we're seeing this deterioration. And so if you just think we're not talking about as far as dementia, but if our brain cells can run on either ketones or glucose, and we know that ketones are a more clean burning fuel, then it would make sense that when we have ketones, that our brains are functioning a lot better. And a really good thing that I encourage my clients to do, when we first start going and they're like, I don't know, is keto right for me? I'm not sure this is going to help. Sometimes I'll recommend they grab some exogenous ketones and fast for the morning, as long as they can try to take it and just have some exogenous ketones, just a little bit. If the package says have a teaspoon, I'm like a quarter teaspoon, add some to water and just take notice of your brain. Just how fast can you recall your aunts and uncles in your family, or what do you have on your planner, or a quick memory game of, okay, what are you doing on Wednesday? Say it all out loud, close your eyes and repeat it. Like how quickly are you able to recall this information? And it is amazing, the difference. And that's just a little bit of exogenous ketones.
Right. I mean, like, I call BS on the whole. Glucose, carbs are the primary source of energy for the brain. We're going to touch it. Come on. If your body in starvation mode goes to ketones, it starts using that as the primary source of fat, and it's protecting the brain. That's why. Why would that not be the preferred source of fat? Like, yes, we can get all to research and all the crap, but I'm just saying it has a powerful impact on the functioning of the brain, protecting it. And in my opinion, it really is the preferred source of fuel because fat is calming. So many times we're seeing like the neurotransmitters, we can get technical, called GABA, being so deficient and not working like it should be. And that just has, when you're on a keto diet, they see those happy feelings, those happy neurotransmitters called GABA, they greatly increase because a lot of mental health issues stem from inappropriately being able to utilize glucose as energy. And so carbs. So they're not actually able to use carbs. So yeah, diabetes of the brain, exactly what I think.
And so you mentioned at the beginning, kind of with your practice, and I love this about your work. And it's something that I attempt to do as well is, yeah, we have a bunch of stuff going on, but what's at the root cause of these issues? And I think especially with mental health, there's usually a bunch of causes to these issues. Yes, it is carbohydrates, but oftentimes too, when we look at mental health, would you say that there's also nutrition deficiencies that are kind of at play also when it comes to mental health issues?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always love it. If, a client has any labs, I am a guru at labs. I'm like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's see what's going on. Of course, we can always check the thyroid issues, or anything going on with PCOS, but kind of getting more root down to checking their zinc levels, the vitamin D3 and iodine and all these other ones and vitamin B12 and just kind of looking at those as well. And there's oftentimes they're greatly deficient in those as well.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up vitamin D. I'll include this in the show notes, but there was a paper that was done in 2015, a review study, and it said that people that are lower in vitamin D show a higher propensity toward anxiety disorders. And I mean, there's one lab that I've seen in the 13 years I've been doing this work. One lab, I saw it last week, and this woman had perfect vitamin D levels. And I was like, I had to double take. I'm like, are you sure this is right? Did you just test this? Like, how is this okay?
Yeah, it never happens. Like everyone I always see has to be put on vitamin D of some sort. There's research done that I'm in San Antonio. So even in a hot climate like San Antonio, I guarantee you the majority, 85% at least, if not more, are vitamin D deficient. It's like you can be outside and you're not absorbing it like you should. It really comes from the diet. It doesn't matter how long you're outside or not.
Yeah, my vitamin D journey has gone on for a really long time. I was diagnosed with very, very severe low vitamin D levels. And no matter what I did, shots, supplements, going out in the sun, it did not help. And it wasn't until I massively increased my animal protein consumption and went into the sun and got on a proper supplement that I was able to level it off. Now I'm sitting around 90, which is awesome. That has never happened in the history of my life. But also what I think a lot of people do with vitamin D is they just go on, 10,000 IUs every day, all the time. And I have concerns over that also. What do you do in your practice? And what's your kind of recommendation on vitamin D, as we know that it helps our mental health so much?
Right. I think 10,000 is a bit much in my personal opinion. I think something around 2,000 IUs a day is very maintainable for the long term. And vitamin D3, because there's another one called D2, and that's more used. Just use it for a month at a really high dosage. And it's not meant to be used over a long period of time. So D3 is the one that you use consistently for a long period of time. And it's usually by month 2 of taking that in conjunction with changing their diet and keto and all the good stuff, that they're like, okay, I am getting more energy. I'm feeling better. I'm sleeping better.
Yes, to touch on the sleep, that's so important. I'm totally with you in that camp. How I raised my vitamin D from the very, very low level was 5,000 IUs a day. And I checked my vitamin D monthly. And once I got up to that level, I went down to 1,000. And I'm so happy that you mentioned the D3K. I do D3K2, and that combination is it's just perfect. And I think another deficiency that's huge that you touched on also is zinc. Zinc deficiency, and women who have hormonal birth control. We know that their zinc is going to be lower because it increases their copper. Do you know of the signs of zinc deficiency, or kind of what people should be looking for when it comes to zinc and mental issues?
So that's a little harder, but a big one is anxiety and irritability. Just kind of like the little mood swings that are subtly going on, and they can turn into big things. And you just feel like, why am I crazy? Does it feel like there's a full moon out every day? That's kind of how women would equate, in my opinion, the zinc deficiency going on.
Yeah. So we're going to include a bunch of different, like you shared some papers. I'm going to include some. Zinc deficiency also can lead to depression, increased anxiety, irritability, emotional instability. Oh, this is an interesting one. Induced defects in social behavior. So maybe that's our next piece to this is, did you notice when you started eating enough fat? I know for me, I could actually be around people.
Yeah.
Did you notice this?
I'm not going to lie. I literally felt like within 2 months after going keto, I went from an introvert to an extrovert. Like I used to want to be a homebody and I didn't want to go out. I never felt like it. And then I was like, oh, I want to go out. I want to see people. I want to be out, have a drink. I don't mind loud music now. Things like that used to really tick me and I just couldn't handle it. Like it would almost put me into an anxiety attack if I did it too much. And so it was just crazy how literally it can change your whole personality in a sense.
Have you tried Element's chocolate medley pack? It's a delicious mix of chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry electrolyte packets. And I'll admit, I wasn't too sure about drinking the whole hot electrolyte situation at first, but now I'm totally hooked. I love it with hot water for a simple, cozy drink or stirred into dairy-free milk for a richer flavor. My personal favorite is adding chocolate mint to my coffee for a minty mocha twist. You can even add it to your protein shake for an extra boost. Element helps restore your electrolytes, which is so important for energy and overall health, especially for us ladies. You can get the chocolate medley pack while it's still available. And with any purchase, you'll receive a free sample pack through my link at drinklmnt.com/KDP. Element also offers a no questions asked refund. So you can try it totally risk-free. And if you do not enjoy it, they will give you your money back completely and fully. Again, that's drinklmnt.com/KDP. Completely. I remember when we were living in Montreal, I was vegan at the time and I had been vegan for about 8 years. And we went to this mall and I remember feeling so incredibly overwhelmed. And there was so many people and so much noise that those sorts of environments where I was around a lot of people, I would avoid them at all costs. It made me really overwhelmed and really terrified. And I would say about 6 or 7 months into my keto journey, I remember making a video and I didn't realize until that moment somebody had asked me a question about mental health. And I was like, wait, that doesn't happen anymore. I can handle all the noises and I can stay focused and I'm not so overwhelmed around people.
Yeah. I mean, literally fat, it goes beyond just being another energy source and weight loss. It literally is calming and changes. It just brings about a chill personality. That's how I would that's the easiest way. I just developed more of I'm zen, I'm chill, whatever. And I didn't care. It was just so relaxing compared to previously from my low calorie diets that I had been on, or just low carb, but not increasing the fat. But I was always still on edge and still had that anxiety. And then just seeing that beautiful transition to keto, it's just so life-changing.
Completely. And I think also too, when I'm going to paint a picture. So a woman goes on the ketogenic diet and she's there for weight loss, but then like us, it sounds like she starts noticing, I'm not weird around people. I can focus. I'm feeling so much better. And then the birthday cake rolls around or the event rolls around and she's nervous because, oh my gosh, if I eat these carbohydrates, what's it going to do to my brain? Do you have any advice for that person who, it's a delicate balance between wanting to live your life, but also knowing that when you have those carbohydrates, you're not going to feel so great. What's kind of your approach when it comes to that?
So it depends, right? That's my answer for everything. But it really depends your journey and when you've started, how far you've come in being keto, right? If you're a newbie and let's say you have a history of binge eating and you've only been on keto for 3 weeks, right? You already know it's amazing, but you're around the birthday cake. I would caution, maybe now is not the best time to have that birthday cake quite yet because you still aren't there. You might feel overwhelmed. You might get, I gotta have more sugar. But I would say more for an individual that's, I guess, around 2 months, a little more fat adapted. They're more confident and listening to their body's fullness. And they can really tell. That's by the time I have a client that will go out, they'll have that piece of cake and they're like, whoa, I had just a half a piece or a quarter of a piece. And that was too much. but I could stop because my brain just told me that was enough. And so that's just like cool. Like they can still go out and enjoy the things. It's not addicting anymore. And their brain is the one that tells them more than the stomach.
I'm glad that you mentioned the addictive piece, which is something we haven't talked about yet as it relates to even mental health on a ketogenic diet. Something I've noticed for myself personally and also my clients, there's that funky transition where we go keto and all we want is carbohydrates, but then it kind of lulls down and you're like, I'm not that interested in this actually. Or you have a little bite and you're like, no, I'm good. And that to not be crazy around food is a huge mental health benefit, at least for myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like one of my best stories is a girl, she does have PCOS, right? And one of the biggest things she struggled with was binge eating, especially around the time her period rolled over, because she just would have those intense cravings and it was just a mess, after month 3, she would literally get to her period and she said, I decided to have a bite of my husband's chocolate bar. I tasted it and I'm like, this isn't even good anymore. I don't want any more. And so that's just the beautiful transition that she went through from day 1 to just month 3. She didn't even like the taste of a Snickers bar anymore. And she felt in control and relieved.
Oh, you know what? I have a very similar story. Kevin and I were on our second keto book tour. And this was like, we had done all of the US. We were just starting Canada. We were going from Victoria to Vancouver or Vancouver to Calgary. I can't remember. And our flight got upgraded, which was awesome. I love when that happens on tour because you're so tired. You've been on a billion planes. Right. And we sat down first class and they're going around with this big basket of large chocolate bars and you can have as much as you want. And Kevin, ever since I remember, we've been together, I think 14 years now, he had a Kit Kat bar every day. Every day he would go to IGA, it's like a grocery store in Canada, and he would get a Kit Kat bar and a water, and he would eat that on his way home from work every day. And so Kevin had gone keto on the tour because he was like, I'm around a bunch of keto people. You're talking about keto. I probably should try this keto thing. And so he had been keto for about 40 days. And we jump on the plane and the lady comes by with the big Kit Kat bars and he's like, no, thank you. And I was like, what? And he's like, I just don't feel like it.
No. That's the biggest fear when you go keto is I'm going to have to say no to all the foods I love, all the carbs. But the thing you don't realize is those foods that you love now, most likely are going to be few and far 4 months later. 3 months later, like they just aren't going to be your favorite foods anymore. And like, it's hard because people don't realize that. And then once they're there, they're like, this is freaking amazing. Like I love other foods better for me than that. And so it's really cool.
Yes, completely. And I guess it's worth noting specifically as we are starting our ketogenic diet, something I've noticed, especially as it relates to mental health is, and we touched on this a little bit with vitamin deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, but also if we are not eating quality food, there might be a woman listening that's like, well, what the heck? I'm still dealing with anxiety and overwhelm. Perhaps my child has ADHD and we're trying, but it's not working. Do you feel like food quality has a role to play for the results that we experience as it relates to our mental health?
Absolutely. So just like when it comes to weight loss, the biggest thing I always tell clients, if you're not losing weight on keto, most likely you have inflammation going on. Okay. Because if you have inflammation or you have a vitamin deficiency, even that can be out of whack. Weight loss is not going to fall off. And the main reasons for the inflammation are, well, if you have a hormone imbalance, we do know gluten, dairy can be big reasons for the inflammation. But also highly processed keto snacks. Like they'll even have gluten in them, or they have all these chemicals in them that you're like, what is that? I can't even pronounce it. And so they're contributing to the reason why you're not losing weight. I see that all the time. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think we can get so tied up. And I mean, I still do this. It's been 8 years. I know better, but some company will send me something like if I get a perfect keto box, in fact, I just got a new box of perfect keto bars. And I'm like, Leanne, only eat one because one is nice, but 8 in a day is not okay. it's just not okay. And I think we get so comfortable with keeping our diet the same or relying on the same foods that we don't get that variety that's required.
And it's really easy. I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, okay, I'll get myself keto cookies, right? And they'll come in a nice little cute bag and they're like 5 servings. I'll have it all because it's only 2 grams of net carbs for a serving or only 10 for the entire bag, right? And I'm like, oh, these are so good. They're cookies. And then I eat the entire bag because it's keto cookies. What the heck? It's okay. But it still has an effect on the brain. The brain can still register it as sugar, whether we believe it or not. And then it has all the other additives in there that can cause inflammation in the brain. So you might not see the whole improvement in ADHD or anxiety, even though you might think it's keto, you're hitting your macros. So I always spend less time on let's count the macros and more time on the quality of food and what that looks like.
Awesome. And so we've talked about nutrition deficiencies, rather a little bit of inflammation. Do you recommend testing? Like the whole test, don't guess is really where I try to put myself, because oftentimes clients will be like, it's totally fine. Everything's okay. And I'm like, but is it? I think we should test this before we put you on a vitamin D, because if your levels, I mean, it's very rare, like I said, that vitamin D is going to be high, but we should not be supplementing with vitamin D if it's high enough.
Right.
And so what's your feeling on testing?
So yes, when it comes to food, there's nothing wrong with experimenting with it, cutting out some gluten and dairy to see how you feel and watching the quality of food without getting tested. That is perfectly fine. But it's more for, okay, what's going on? You're not losing that weight as well, or kind of like, why aren't we seeing the changes? And that's before I ever put anyone on any type of vitamin or mineral, even though it's not a drug. I still consider it a form of a drug, right? Because our bodies get out of whack if we're deficient. So they're going to be out of whack if it's too high. So I do love labs for that reason. I turn into a little lab geek and get excited when I'm like, ooh, these are the ranges that you're in. So yes, absolutely. I think it's a great call.
Yeah, it's kind of playing that as somebody who has a one-on-one practice also. It's so fun to take your clients through that process and educate them on what to look for on their labs, because those numbers that we see on the panels are based on a bunch of sick people going in, getting tested, and then they make those ranges. But there are optimal ranges, not only for healthy people, but for each individual. Like, for example, with my thyroid, I know that my free T3 has to be considerably higher than what even my holistic practitioner would say is okay. But I know that if it's not at that level for me, I'm not going to feel optimal. And so it's kind of that we were talking about before we started recording, like how great it would be if people had about $500 in a side bank account every 3 months that we could do testing, but it does get very expensive.
Yes, absolutely. It really just depends, like with yourself having a thyroid issue, or are you a fairly calm and healthy individual? It really just depends. And I do love it for my girls with hypothyroidism. Like I had a client, like she was slowly seeing weight loss and inches loss. And she's like, she had lost maybe 16 pounds in 4 months, which for hypothyroidism is amazing. Like we got to celebrate that. But for her, she's like, it's not as fast as, X, Y, and Z who does keto, right? They're not losing like 30 pounds or whatever in the timeline. So I was like, well, let's go get your labs tested. And so she went to this holistic doctor that I refer a lot of my clients to. And her doctor said, oh my God, you're no longer hypothyroid. You're actually hyperthyroid. We have to take you off of your levothyroxine so that because your thyroid hormones have literally balanced out being on keto. So her, in her mind, she was having slow success, but in the end, her thyroid hormones had literally balanced out. And so that was just a beautiful thing. She actually got to get off of her medicine. And yeah, that was after 4 months.
That's interesting. I'm just so curious why she would have been put on levothyroxine as a hypothyroid. Did she have Hashimoto's?
She did have some variation in that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because anytime I see that on a panel, I'm like, and can we talk to your doctor about being put on desiccated or Armour thyroid, NP thyroid?
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors do put them on levothyroxine, which it's not my favorite.
Completely. Me neither. And that's, I think, another piece of the mental health thing. I mean, I have a couple of experiences. Man, I think because you're a health practitioner, I run my labs, like full, complete labs every 3 months. And I'm always kind of playing with things and levers and discovering new things I can test for. And we were talking earlier that I just got certified to read Dutch panels, which has been so fun to add to my practice and also just for me to understand it all. And when I was in Canada, I was on a desiccated thyroid. And when we came down to the US and I couldn't get my thyroid capsules, I switched over to, was it NP thyroid first? Yes, NP thyroid, same component of desiccated thyroid. I looked at how they compound it, what the ingredients were, I don't even know what it's called, the chemistry, the chemical makeup of this supplement. It was the same. Girl, I went crazy. I was so depressed. I was moody. I felt completely out of control mentally. And months went by and my husband, just on the off chance, he's like, didn't you change your thyroid? Should you test it or something? Like, what's going on? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the thyroid medicine. I'm not on the right dosage. And that was just rocked me. And it's unfortunate. The thyroid is such a tricky thing to balance, but can cause a lot of mental issues if not properly medicated or not properly supported. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the fine balance, right? Because I have worked clinically even with hyperparathyroidism and hypoparathyroidism. So it's a little different type of thyroid, but you still are working with vitamin D, you're working with calcium, and then these other minerals. And it's like every time you feel like you're moving one, decreasing one. And it's just but it can be a beautiful thing when you finally get it balanced out and you're like, they feel good, they're happy, and the weight is stabilizing. And it's like, okay, I did my job. I'm so happy. It worked out in the end.
Yes. And it takes a lot of finessing. And when it comes to thyroid, I think, and I hate to kind of take this stance because I usually don't take a black and white stance. I have not been able to, for myself personally and my clients, fix the thyroid, support the thyroid without testing multiple times. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yes, because it can be a finicky thing. It might be a little lower, then a little higher, and you just have to consistently. I mean, when I worked clinically, monthly where I did that because they would just change. They would go up a little bit, go down a little bit. And then once you had it right, then you would maybe wait 3 months to redraw them again, but it's always that you do have to keep an eye on it for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, this is such a pain point for me working with clients who their doctor puts them on just Synthroid, let's say, for example, and it's like, let's test another 6 months to a year.
Yep. No.
What? No. And I think especially when I go through very stressful periods, for example, when I'm on tour and I have to be on the last 2 tours, I doubled my thyroid medication. It needed to be doubled because of the stress.
Wow. But at least you knew that, you knew yourself. And that's always the biggest thing. I always tell clients, you got to know yourself. And then once you know yourself, you know how much and how little. You're your own practitioner, right? You're the doctor of yourself, but it's not just something you learn overnight. You got to practice it and know yourself. It takes time.
Yes, completely. And I guess since we talked a little bit about testing, what do you recommend for thyroid testing? That's the kind of the go-to thyroid tests.
Now, that's not my specialty when it comes to the hypothyroidism. I leave that up to my functional medicine doctor for sure. But she definitely checks the cortisol, the T4, the T3, TSH. But those are the main ones that I'm like, okay, what else do you have?
I'm the same. I think the biggest pain point is when people diagnose thyroid issues with just TSH. I think the initial test, no, I disagree with what I'm about to say. I'm like, if you just want to test the TSH and then if it's off, test everything else. But the TSH can be quote unquote balanced. But as soon as you look at that free T3 or free T4, you're going to know you kind of need the big picture when you're looking at the thyroid. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because I'll have individuals say, I don't think I have a thyroid issue, but then we'll look at, okay, maybe they did for themselves take a food sensitivity, out there, some test out there. And I look at them, I take them with a grain of salt. Not all of them are very accurate, but I'll look at them. I'm like, it looks like you have sensitivities to the same foods that my hypothyroid patients typically have. And so once we work with that alone, and then they finally get tested and they find, oh, I do have these off the T3 and T4s. It was, even though the TSH was like, okay, whatever, with the normal doctor, then they're like, okay, I do got to watch these foods. I do have hypothyroidism, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm one of those patients always. It's like, if I'm dealing with something, I hope that there's a problem. I hope that there's a diagnosis so that I can fix it or manage it so I don't feel this way anymore.
I mean, there is nothing worse than feeling like you're crazy. You're like, something's wrong with me. I just want to put my finger on it. And so that's what they always say. Once you have a diagnosis of some sort, I feel like you feel empowered and relieved. Like, sure, it can be a little shocking at first, but then you know what you have and you know that you just need to learn how to manage it.
Completely. Since we've talked a bunch about responsible supplementation has definitely come up. Another experience that I had personally last March, which put me into a huge depressive state, which was actually horrible. I was put on a high dose methylfolate and I knew nothing about folate at the time. My folate level was low. The doctor was like, here you go. Here's 5,000. Is it micrograms folate? I'm pretty sure micrograms. Maybe it's milligrams. It doesn't matter. Anyways, I went nuts. I was a mess. And it took me months to figure out again that it was a supplementation. And now I have now figured out that I have the MTHFR mutation. I can't have that much folate. And so I think really the point of this conversation is like, just because people say, oh my gosh, you need the methylated folate or you need the vitamin D or you need this, that, and the other thing. If you're not testing and you're not understanding these high doses of things, it can really mess up your brain.
Oh, absolutely. Like there was a time I was like, well, fish oil is good. So I just grabbed the highest dosage of omega-3 I could find. Literally in a week, I was super anxious and feeling depressed. And it's like, then I later learned, well, that was too high for me. And you also need some vitamin D3 and a little bit of calcium. They all need to work together. And so it's finding that balance. And just because you're like, oh, they always say on the news or in the magazines, have more fish oil, have more omega, like it doesn't always just work as simply as putting yourself on the highest dose. That's why I do consider, vitamins and minerals are just like medicine. They really are.
Yes, completely. And it's so great that we have access to them and that we can use them and that there are tools that we have available, but it's kind of discouraging. And I'm sure you've seen this in your practice also, but I started working with a client recently and on her form, it said that she was taking DIM. And so that always raises a little red flag. And I'm like, okay, we got to have a conversation about this DIM and why she started it. She just saw an ad that said all women have high estrogen. And if you don't want cancer, put yourself on DIM. And she's been taking it for years.
Yeah. And, sometimes the easiest thing that we think in our minds, well, I'll change my diet when I change my diet. But the easiest thing for me to do is grab that supplement and start taking it or whatever. And the diet needs to be number one in conjunction to drawing your labs and figuring out, okay, what do I need to work on? So absolutely.
Let's talk about something that's been an absolute game changer for my skin, BioCell collagen. I've been using it daily and I cannot believe the difference that it's made. My skin is smoother, it's more hydrated, and it has this healthy glow about it that wasn't there before. And I don't necessarily care for my skin all that well. I don't do expensive treatments or fancy things. But the best part is that it's happening from the inside out, and that's all thanks to BioCell collagen. BioCell isn't just your average collagen. It's a special formulation for better absorption, which means your body gets more of the nutrients it needs to keep your skin looking youthful and radiant. It's like giving your skin a boost from inside, helping to reduce wrinkles and improve elasticity. Want to see some amazing benefits yourself? Head on over to mygrowinghair.com to get a month's supply of BioCell collagen for $25 off. And if you set up a subscription, you'll save an additional $25 off every future order forever. That's 15% savings every month. And remember, when you purchase through my site, I'll send you a personal text message so that we can stay connected on all things collagen, hair, and skin health. Visit mygrowinghair.com today to get started.
Completely. And you mentioned sleep a little bit ago, and a lack of sleep or inability to sleep or getting up, tossing and turning in the middle of the night, all those things can definitely affect our overall mental health. What has been your experience with sleep quality in your practice?
So yeah, they're definitely inversely related. They both affect each other. You can have poor sleep quality, gain weight, throw your hormones off, mental health. So it's like a vicious little cycle going on, and it can raise your stress hormones. So the biggest number one thing I see is absolutely keto. Like, I want my clients first day, I want them to plan out every night they're going to go to bed. Like, if they have been averaging like 5 hours every night, I'm like, okay, might not be realistic to get you to go to 8 hours every night. Let's increase that to where you go to bed 30 minutes this night. Try it for a week. Then let's increase it again. But absolutely, first getting that sleep scheduled in, and then in conjunction working with keto, because fat, it just really relaxes the brain and calms it. So it kind of turns off the whole thinking at night, viciously going and can't turn it off mentality, where it actually will relax you, it calms you, and then you're able to actually finally start getting that quality sleep, in addition to planning out when you're going to bed and increasing that amount of time.
I love the idea of planning when you're going to go to bed. I just got into this practice a couple of months ago, completely by accident. I started reading the Bible before bed, and my day ends at 8 p.m. Like, I don't care what's going on, whatever's happening, I'm going to my bed and I'm reading my Bible. And since doing that, just inadvertently, I'm going to bed consistently at 10 o'clock every night. And it's been months. And it's so consistent. And I love it. It's great. I always just would go to bed like whenever I was tired. I wouldn't have any structure. And having that plan and structure of this is what I do at 8 p.m., nothing gets in the way of that, has been so incredibly helpful for my personal sleep.
And for you, probably reading the Bible is therapeutic and relaxing to you instead of reading the news or checking your social media, right? So yeah, absolutely finding that thing that's like, it puts you in that happy spot where you're at ease and you're calm and you find that peace. So that does, having that habits that lead you to bed does absolutely make the difference too.
Completely. And I'm sure you deal with this in your practice also, hot flashes and sleeping. Do you have clients that just cannot sleep because of their hot flashes, and kind of what are the tools that you're doing to help with that? Because that will make you feel completely not okay mentally.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, those are definitely the ones for sure that will struggle with it. But more so, I see that mostly in week 1 and 2, just transitioning into keto, having all the weird funkiness. And so yes, hot flashes are absolutely one of them. The biggest thing that I see that will help with hot flashes, well, turning down the AC to like 60 at night, sure, that'll help. But just having enough fat and having your bone broth, making sure you're getting the collagen, something about the electrolytes, those can be very beneficial for helping reduce that type of symptom, in my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah. In my practice too, I've been using a lot of maca. I'll include it in the show notes. Actually, a lot of my clients use maca to help with the hot flashes. I find that really helps. And CBD also to just like get them asleep. Yes. Like, let's get you asleep, because I find women who are in that age group are usually kind of in that place where their work is quite stressful and they're very overwhelmed, and they're trying to coordinate a lot of their house stuff, and their kids are like teenagers or young adults. So there's like a lot of stuff going on. Like, just getting them in bed and getting them to sleep with something like a CBD has been really helpful. And what is your experience with? Oh, I use Eaton Hemp. That's what I find. Like, there are so many. Do you find this with CBD oils? Like, there's so many garbage brands, and they're all like, we're the best, but there's no science behind them. And I was just so incredibly frustrated with the CBD market in general. It's like snake oil. It's horrible.
I was like, for supplements or any even keto products out there, it's finding that clean substance that is minimal extra additives and is the pure stuff. That's what it comes down to in the end. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And like honest companies, it's so important. And I'm sure you also in your practice is like aligning yourself with awesome companies, and not even just the company, but the people that work at these companies. Who's the owner? How do they run their business? How do they take care of their employees? What kind of programs do they have? Like all of that makes a difference. And I take that stuff really seriously because you're recommending, I mean, some CBD oils are $150 each. People are putting a lot of money into this. It has to be good and it has to work because it's your name on the line and you want to make sure they're cared for.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Completely. Okay. So we talked about responsible supplementation, and really just testing is also really important. What about beyond nutrition? I've been really fascinated in helping my clients and just helping people in general to kind of see what behaviors they've been kind of like that have supported them into the type of lifestyle that they have. Very similar to what you said, like planning out when I'm going to go to bed and planning out what I'm going to make for dinner. So you're not at 5 o'clock, like, we have no food in the house. What am I doing? Like all these different behaviors. Do you find that also in your practice, like really coaching people through the planning and the structure and the behaviors that support their mental well-being?
Absolutely. That is like whenever there's a hiccup or, oh, I'm just getting busy. I'm like, well, did you make a plan for it? Did you have a plan in place? It kind of like meal planning. Like you got to plan out your life and have just a weekly idea and write it out initially. What does that look like? And that goes for exercise. What type of exercise you do, how often you do it, what makes you the happiest, or having non-food rewards. It's all those things you got to think about, plan about, and not just let a situation pop up, grab you by surprise, and you just go. So yes, planning. Yes. That's my favorite.
The stuff catching by surprise. I think the ticket for me is whenever I say, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. What's your plan? I just won't eat. That is the worst plan.
Yep. And that's literally what was happening. I had a client like that, throughout the holidays. She's like, I'm trying to follow the meal plan, but it's really hard. She kept going over to her family that lived close by. And so I said, well, what's your plan? Well, I don't know. I'm just going to go there. They have snacks out all the time. There are some that I like. Well, are there snacks there that you can always eat? And she's like, well, not always. So I was like, well, how about you have a plan that every time you go over, you contribute and take one of your snacks that you know that you can eat and enjoy and that you love while having a good social time. And she's like, oh, yeah. And then she started losing that weight because she had a plan, she did it, and she got to contribute and feel good at the same time. It wasn't like she's going to an event and just acting like, I can't eat that. She contributed and shared.
Yeah, that's the best thing is the sharing. And I mean, it's so rare that living on a boat and having people constantly coming to our home, we're going to their home. It's a very social lifestyle. And I've met hundreds of people and I've been on hundreds of people's boats and they've been on ours. And it's never this uncomfortable thing when I'm like, I brought over pork rinds. Want to see what this tastes like with chimichurri? And everyone's like, yeah. What is that? What is a pork rind? I don't understand. How do they make this? And it's fun to get to educate other people on the decisions that we're making and why we make these choices. And 9 times out of 10, say it's like a husband and wife. The wife is like, why do you eat like that? Like, what's going on there? And then it starts a conversation. She's like, I feel this way too. And oh my gosh, I struggle with this also. And it's never been a problem.
Absolutely. And if you do, for instance, ever have that one individual that's like, well, I've heard blah, 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 keto is horrible, blah, blah, blah. It's their problem. They're self-deflecting. They have their own insecurities. Just turn the conversation around. Don't worry about it. Because again, sometimes it can be like politics and religion and people are just set in their ways. But yes, I have found that it's very few and far.
Completely. Where can people find more from you, connect with you? What do you have going on? How do people work with you? Tell us all the things.
Absolutely. So I'm on social media at Keto Girl Nutritionist, and that's also my website. And I would love to have you. I have a group program that is 3 to 6 months, and I work with ladies specifically who are balancing hormones to lose weight, all the good things, PCOS, hypothyroidism. But then I also do work with clients that I do get that want to work on bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD, and tailoring the keto diet specifically for that so that they do feel better. So yes, I would love to have you stop by and say hi.
Amazing. I will put all those links. If you're watching the video, you can find it down below on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio, I'll be sure to add all your special places where people can connect with you in the show notes. So you guys can watch for that. And Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I just love taking episodes from the archives and bringing them back up on your feed. If you want to check out Priscilla's work, you can check her out on Instagram, keto.girl.nutritionist, and also her website, ketogirlnutritionist.com. Also in the show notes, you're going to see a supplement recommendation. And on that link, if you click that link, it'll ask you to set up an account and you'll get 20% off all supplements on that site through FullScript. And my dispensary has like a bunch of different protocols and things you can use to get you started if you need more direction on that front. Okay, we will see you back here next week. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit Podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit Podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit Podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.